This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I am here with Kirby Atwell, and we're going to be talking about how you can learn to get your first short-term rental under your belt and get moving on with some cash flow that maybe you desperately need, or maybe you just want to retire. So I want to pay homage to my sponsor, livecom.com, livecomm.com. Man, I'm averaging 4 days on the market with my houses for sale, and I don't use any signs. I don't put one sign out in my yard anymore. So if you want to know how I do that, go over there. There's lots of uses for Livecom. It's basically about smartphone numbers that capture the incoming caller's cell phone number and put them in a text distribution list. It's a great way to track ads, a great way to track signs and see what's working. There's a lot of uses for it. And believe me, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of them when you go over there to livecom.com, livecomm.com. All right, Kirby, we paid the bills. So now it's time to get on to how to make some money. So first of all, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're at and where you're from.
All right. Well, it's an honor to be back on your show. I really appreciate it. I was actually on about probably like 8 months ago or almost a year ago at this point. And so, listeners can refer back to that for more details, but just the short version. I'm currently in Northwest Indiana. I'm from Chicago area originally, and then served in the Army and got out in 2011. And I've been investing in real estate ever since in different capacities.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you start out? You didn't start out in short-term rentals, did you?
No. So in 2011, left the Army and jumped into real estate investing full time. I was super excited about it. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in the Army and bought some rental properties and thought, success was going to come quicker than it actually did, and that deals were going to be more profitable than they actually were. And so learned the hard way, jumping into it full time. And so, but we did about 70 flips from 2011 to 2016. And that's when I looked up and had the realization that, financially speaking, I think a lot of flippers have this realization at some point that I was not any better off than I was when I first started. We had made millions of dollars, and we put that money right back into marketing, into staff, into an office, and all the things that you pay for to get deals. And I had no assets. So pretty much in the same spot with 5 years later. And so I realized at that point, that's when I needed to really get into rentals. And I started with long-term rentals, doing this VASH voucher program that I talked about last time, where you can rent houses to homeless veterans through a voucher that they get with the VA. It's very similar to like a Section 8 voucher. And it was a great program. It worked really well in the suburbs of Chicago, where price points were very affordable and the rent rates were really high. But eventually my wife and I moved over here to Northwest Indiana, and it's a very management intensive thing to manage voucher programs, especially with homeless veterans who, there's sometimes some issues that come along with that. And so decided that I needed a new strategy. And that's where I landed on short-term rentals over here.
Yeah. So, everything gets down to how much drain damage is it, right? Like how much, everything's doable. It's just like, can you see yourself doing it for 30 years or 25 years or 20 years or not? So yeah, Ken D'Angelo, the founder of Homevestors franchise, said to me once, entrepreneurs rarely end up with the business they start. They always morph they always morph to more money with less resistance, and they keep morphing until they find their place or till they find the perfect business for them. So you're kind of morphing yourself, right? You're trying all these things, you're morphing, and you come up with the idea that short-term rentals is the way to go, because obviously you must have had some rental properties besides the veteran rental properties. You had some regular rental properties, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And can we all raise their hand? They're a pain in the ass too, if you agree.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Of course, always keeping in mind, there's no free money. You don't get anything for nothing, right? Mm-hmm. But there's just some things are harder than others, and some people are equipped to deal with other things better than others. Like me, I was probably the worst landlord in the world because I just as soon strangle the living hell out of you for, peeing all over my carpet than anyways.
Handle it through the courts. Yeah, yeah.
to bring you over there, you go to a seminar, you accidentally do one, your friend does one, what?
Sorry, you cut out there real quick, but so
how do you morph into short-term rentals? I mean, you had some rentals, you did some flips, then how does that morph into, hey, I think I'm going to try short-term rentals? Did you meet a friend? Did you go to a seminar?
Yeah.
Did you YouTube? What?
Yeah, great question. And I think you made such a great point that as you evolve, as you grow as a real estate investor, it becomes more about lifestyle by design, and more about how do I achieve, better results with less effort. And flipping wasn't the way to do that. I got into long-term rentals, and I realized at that point that, if you go on Bigger Pockets, everyone talks about the 1% rule. And I think, that's great for people who have a full-time job that want to just build rentals passively and retire on those at some point. But that wasn't what my goal was. And so I realized I needed better cash flow than just 1% or, turnkey type properties. And so that's what drove me to get into the voucher program initially, because the cash flow is really good. And then eventually, once we got over here to Northwest Indiana, I said, that program doesn't work over here. The cash flow is nowhere near what it was in Illinois. But I saw that there's potential. I kept hearing about short-term rentals. And so we bought a house on Lake Michigan that, overlooks the water, and it had a walkout basement, and it was currently unfinished. And so as we were gutting this house for us to live in, we said, well, why don't we pay an extra $30,000, turn the basement into a 1-bedroom apartment, and see what it'll do on Airbnb. And we were shocked because we didn't know anything about what we were doing. I mean, we left so much money on the table when we did this, because any income from it was income we didn't have previously. So we thought any income was good, but we could have charged double what we were charging in the beginning. And it paid for 3/4 of our mortgage just for the 3 or 4 months that we rented it in the summer. And then we didn't even rent it the rest of the year. So at that point, I realized this is crazy, the possibility here. And so if we can scale this a little bit, it's very lucrative. And so that's what we started doing. We started buying other properties all around the area that we could manage very easily. And we got into short-term rentals that way, starting with our own.
Okay. So a perfect classic example of how usually things happen to me. I accidentally try something, it works, and then you start going, that was pleasant. How do I wonder? Let's explore this idea a little more. I wonder how I 10x this, or how do you 10x this?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make this happen more often? And then you start looking around and you start exploring. Unfortunately, someone has been trying to tell us all this stuff all this time. They just never found us, or we weren't listening. Or it just wasn't our time, right? We weren't ready to hear it. We weren't there yet to even accept the message when it came to us, right? Like you heard the thing that the teacher will appear when the student's ready. It was there, you just weren't ready. So you buy your first 1-bedroom apartment. What are you renting? I mean, like what does that look like? Your house payment's X, and you're bringing in what X the apartment?
Yeah. So our total mortgage with taxes, because now we're living in Indiana, not Illinois. So our taxes are like a tiny little fraction of what they were in Illinois. But it was like $32.50 at the time. And so per month. And so we started renting the property, and we realized that, I think we were renting, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, but I think we started at like $150 on the weekends and maybe like $120 during the week. And there's just nothing else around on the water. There's just a massive shortage in this area of housing because it's a new national park. A lot of people want to visit. There's really nice beaches in the summer, and there's no hotels really in the area, and just not nearly enough Airbnb. So we got booked up right away. And so it paid, we were basically booked solid for about 4 months or so in the summer.
Wow. So, did you enjoy the people being there, or did you not enjoy the people being there?
Yeah, that was the big question that we got from our friends and family. Like, you really want strangers walking into your house? And
it could be fun if you're the right, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Exactly. And so we would screen people, so we wouldn't rent to anybody who didn't have previous 5-star reviews on Airbnb. So we knew they were vetted a little bit. And then, we didn't know half the time if they're even there because we had a separate digital lock on the walkout basement where they could enter and go as they please. We did have a big patio in the front that overlooked the water that they would sit out on at night and stuff. So we would get to talk to certain guests if they wanted to, but it wasn't like we were their tour guides while they were there. So it was nice. We met some people. There's a family from Germany that came and stayed for like 10 days, and we wouldn't have met them otherwise, but they were super nice. And so it complemented our lifestyle really well.
Cool. So you're giving away a free guide on how to identify a great short-term rental. Mm-hmm. And I want everyone to go to 1000houses.com/Atwell. That's Atwell. And that'll get you over to the show notes. And if there's anything else we talk about on this show, podcasts or whatever, it's going to be over there in those show notes. So all you have to remember is 1000houses.com/Atwell, Atwell. That's Kirby's last name. And that'll get you over there. And by the way, Kirby, it's evergreen. So anytime you want to add something or delete something or update something, you can call us and we'll update it, add, awesome. Put whatever you have.
I appreciate you sharing that.
So let's talk about that. Why did you move from the rentals to the short-term rentals?
Yeah.
Because you used to have a lot of rentals, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I built that portfolio up initially, my goal with rentals was I looked at a spreadsheet and I said, if I can buy 24 properties that have $500 a month of free and clear cash flow after all my expenses and set asides, and I can build in each one, I can build in $40,000 of equity through a rehab. So I was doing like the Burr model. Then I'm left with, at the end of that, $1 million of net worth and $12,000 of income. Basically going forward. And so that's, I put my head down and basically did that, accomplished it. I got to 26. One of them was an 11-unit apartment that I bought along the way. But it was very inconsistent, and especially with the vouchers, there's a lot of problems that come up, and I'm kind of OCD and like to have my places kept really nice after a full rehab of them. So like you said, it's very difficult for me to walk in, see someone pee on the carpet and, not flip out. So I loved this idea of having my houses cleaned twice a week, being kept in tip top shape, being able to vet people before they get there to know that they've stayed in other places and have 5-star reviews. And they have insurance, right? They have $1 million worth of insurance. Like exactly,
here's your house down. I read a case study one time where someone just came in and had a big party and tore their house down, and they got redone.
Yeah. Airbnb has a $1 million policy.
Not what you want to happen, right? But if it happens, at least, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Airbnb has insurance.
Yeah, it's called the host guarantee. Yeah. So what I realized though, when I started, the problem that most people have is that they say, good, I get like long-term rentals. I can see it's $1,100 for a rental in this area. It's a 3-bedroom. Like no matter what I do, pretty much I'm going to get around $1,100. You go on Airbnb and you see like this guy's asking $150 a night. This guy's asking $250. Is he booked up? Will I get bookings? I don't know how to judge occupancy level in the winter and the summer. So they're trying to run numbers and they're like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And so in that guide, I talk about how you can run numbers and know your numbers ahead of time. But I just ran very conservative numbers based off of comps I was seeing on Airbnb. And I realized even at these conservative numbers, if it works out, it's still way better than a long-term rental. And so, I bought the first one with the backup plan, the insurance policy in my head that if all this doesn't work out, I'm basically going to sell the $8,000 worth of furnishings and plates and cups and all the stuff that I bought and turn it back into a long-term rental. And it'll still do okay as a long-term rental. But after the first one, the first separate one beyond my house, it worked out really, really well.
Help me with the math though. So at $100 a day, 30 days is $3,000 a month, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking at $1,100 rental or $3,000 a month. Of course, this is optimum, or I'm figuring 100% occupied. I did take the low road between 120 or whatever. I just did 100, 250. I mean, I just went to 100. Yeah. But so just so people can get an idea of the numbers. And so you're vacant a couple of days, so you only make 2,200 or 1,800 or whatever. But then there's also seasons where you can go up to 250 and you're going to be booked for the 5 days and the holidays, which kind of makes up. So God only knows what the average is going to be, but it's going to be more because of the high seasons, right?
Exactly.
And everything's kind of levels out. And then you probably haven't had time for this, but there's people that are going to repeat, because after people get, I mean, I know me, when I go to Airbnb and it's all right, I don't want to take a chance on another one. I just want to go back to the one, you know what I mean? That I know it was all right. Even if it wasn't my favorite, at least I know what it was, you know?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, we have a postable account where people can just log in and put in their address and they get discounts then for future stays. So we're trying to build up that future stay business of repeat customers. But you're absolutely right. We make all of our profit for the most part in the summer. We have one property, our best performer. It was a hoarder house, bought it for $70,000 last summer. Gut rehabbed it, took about 20 dumpster loads to the dump, put about 110 into it. It appraised for 240 afterwards. And this month it will make over $10,000 of gross income. We charge about $400 a night in the summer. So you don't need too many of those months to do really well. And then in the winter, it still books. It's like long weekends, but it's, $1,500 or $2,000 a month, so it's nowhere near what it is in the summer. But it still overall does really well. And, you do have increased expenses where I'm paying the utilities, I'm paying somebody to cut the grass. I'm paying cleaners, but you charge the guest for a cleaning fee as well. So, there are increased expenses, but it still just blows a typical rental out of the water.
And your assets being taken care of. I mean, I had this discussion on my YouTube channel the other day, like, you want to rent your houses and you take care of the lawn and you take care of have a maintenance program and just try to add that onto, or do you just want them to take care of it, which means it's not going to get taken care of? So your $3,000 worth of landscape will be dead by the end of the summer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
It just seems like a whole better, if I wanted to be a landlord, that would be the way I would want to go. So do you end up, if it was me, I'd be trying to concentrate in the smallest area I could, like around this lake, and have as many close so that one team could pretty much handle a lot. You know what I mean? Of course, I understand you could have one over in Madrid, Spain, and you could have one over in the Bahamas, and you could have one. And there's a certain allure to that too, but trying to manage that stuff, I short circuit at that point. You know what? Yeah. I have my storages. I've had some storages in other cities far away from me, but I decided to come back and just build my storages around the lake where I live. There's more opportunity than I'll ever get to. Yep. Right here. Why the hell was I going to Corpus and going to, all these different places? Because then I had to build a whole new team down there. And there's a whole nother culture, the way people think down there than the way they think here, and a whole different pay scale. And everything's different,
Exactly.
I can't even price anything because you think, well, I'll just, I'll hire a cleaning lady just like I do here. Well, they want $10 million down there to clean a house.
Yeah. No, I think you and I think very similarly, because all mine are within walking distance at this point. So I've got 9 listings right now, about to close on a 10th property here, and they're all right in the same area. So
I had this idea, you could build a virtual RV, mobile home park, by just getting lots, renting the lots, putting a mobile home on it and selling the homeowner finance and renting the lot, or renting the house and renting the lot. And so the mobile home park, the properties wouldn't be contiguous, but there would also be no limit to the boundaries of how many homes your park could have. Because if you could find 100 lots, then you would have 100 on this spreadsheet. You would have like a mobile home park that had 100 spaces, but the spreadsheet has no end. So you can keep going. So if you can find another 100, then your park just grew to 200 spaces, and then it grew to 300. Well, what you're doing is kind of like a hotel. It's just the rooms aren't contiguous, right?
Exactly.
And the locations aren't contiguous, but you could build this to 1,000 rooms if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But the coolest part about it is you can grow it one little tiny piece at a time. I mean, to buy a big hotel with 1,000 units, my God, who's got the money for that? I mean, that's a whole different game. Storage is kind of the same way. My self-storage is the reason why I like self-storages. I could buy a 5-acre piece of land that had a little storage building on it, and I could add 10 by 20 units one at a time if that's all the money I had to keep growing in tiny increments. And especially what was important about all of that was I was growing in the increments that I knew that I needed, because I was getting the phone calls and I didn't have the product. So I would go out and look for that product, or I would build. If people wanted 10 by 20s, I'd build 10 by 20s. If people wanted 14 by 40 boat stalls, I'd build that. So it's not that much different from the Airbnb model, is that you actually have this hotel that you can just keep raising the ceiling and go up floors after floors after floors and have 1 million units if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny you say that, because that actually is the Airbnbs kind of led us into that thinking. And we recently, last year, my wife and I bought 45 acres with an old farmhouse on it. So what we were able to do is buy it with a conventional loan. And I just did a YouTube video on what we're doing, but we bought it with a conventional loan. This house here, we gutted it, and we rehabbed the house. We're refinancing at a higher dollar amount. And now on this 45 acres, we're planning to put, either yurts or cabins or tiny houses. And like you said, there's no limit. I've got one mortgage now, and there's no limit to the number of rentals that we can put out here. And they're inexpensive, but people from Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, all around here, they want to get out of the city. They want to come out and experience nature without having to rough it. And so they'll stay in these for a couple $100 a night. And it's incredibly lucrative. So we're kind of in the middle of doing that right now too. We rehabbed an old 100-year-old barn on the property that we can hold events or weddings at as well. So
it's fun too, right? Because you're creating, I don't know if you have that in you. I do. You're creating some kind of theme. You're making this place look a certain way. It's kind of fun to call the architects out, or the virtual design people, and say, well, what if it looked like this? What if it looked like this? And then you find your master plan, and you just start one little piece at a time, growing it as you can.
Exactly.
How exciting is that?
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and the kids can take part in it, and they're, so they're learning a lot. And so it's just, so it's great. The model, I've fallen in love with the model. I don't recommend probably starting with a 45 acre, farm, but it's, but like you said, you can start with
like
one.
You did.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
A duplex that you're going to do one side or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's always, it takes a little while to acclimate, to know if things are right for you. So put your little finger in, keep going, So tell me about, you're going to have is it a 6-week course, or a course in 6 weeks? I didn't want to read this wrong.
It's a 6-week course on this. It's basically a blueprint for how to get your first short-term rental. So how to analyze the market, how to analyze the right property within that market to buy, and then how to buy and set up your profile, a listing that does really well, all the ins and outs. And I'm going to deliver it live over 6 weeks, starting in September. And there'll be a live Q&A to kind of go over deals that you're looking at and that sort of thing throughout the program. So I'm really excited. I've been wanting to work with other people on this just because it's changed my life so much. And so this is kind of the first time I've had anything, paid or kind of premium offering.
Okay, so here's the thing. If this sounds interesting to y'all out there, why would you try to figure this out yourself? I mean, whether you go with Kirby or someone else, I mean, you're gonna pay the street, or you're gonna pay the guy who's doing it to show you what he's learned, so that you don't have to learn it the hard way. So it's a really good thing. I understand you're probably not. I mean, there's different increments in the prices because it depends on if you sign up early and if you sign up late and everything. Mm-hmm. But what's it going to run about average? What can you expect to come to this 6-week seminar for?
Yeah, and I played around with price. It was tough because I don't want it to be exclude anyone, but at the same time, if you can get a deal that pays you $1,000 a month forever, what's that worth? So I think it's going to be right around what I think a monthly income of a property that you could get as a
one month
cash.
Well, I'll teach you how to do it. You give me 1 month's rent,
Exactly. So the cash flow from it, and that's after all your expenses. So I think it's going to be like $1,295 or $1,300, somewhere in there. That it, is the price point that I've landed on.
He has the right to change his mind, change his price, whatever. But as of right now, he's thinking around $1,200, $1,300. What a deal! So someone to show you everything they figured out for over 6 weeks, and even if it's $1,500, what a deal! I mean, to show you how to make money for the rest of your life, it's just stupid. But it has to turn you on. It has to be what you think is for you. And
exactly,
you may not even. I mean, are there places where just nobody ever wants to go? I imagine there is, right? So you got to find some place with some romance, right?
Yeah, I mean, most people wouldn't say Michigan City is the hotbed of Airbnb activity, which is where I invest. But there's got to be draws. There's the beach there. There's a casino. There's an outlet mall. There's things for people to do there. So yes, there's got to be some draw. But almost everyone lives within an hour or two of a place that would be a perfect Airbnb area for them, and they're the biggest factor. That's the thing. It's like, it can work really well for one person in this area, but not somebody else because they don't market it the same way, or they're not, looking at it, their goals are different. So yeah, so it's got to match. So we'll go through all that and make sure, the area you're buying and the property you're buying matches with what your financial freedom number is and what your long-term goals are, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So you make up a good point. Within 2 to 3 hours of you, it might be the perfect place. And you don't really need to be right on top of these. You might need to travel to them, especially when you're buying or looking. But the way technology is right now, you would actually, being a little further away from this might even be an asset to you. Yeah. A little more difficult up front, but you'll actually be building a business that you work on instead of in, and it would force you to do that. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, my friends, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's all about the team, and the cleaner and your handyman are essential. And in the program, we're going to talk about how to get a really solid cleaner and solid handyman, so you can not have to be there and check guests in yourself and all that stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. All right, my friends, I think we've covered it. Kirby, anything we need to add before maybe we wrap it up?
No, I think that's it. I love this strategy, and I think there's a lot of people there's one thing I've interviewed like about 50 people now as I've been developing this course to find out what's kind of holding them back from doing short-term rentals. And there's always like one aspect that's like, I don't know how to run the numbers. I don't know how to find the cleaner. I don't know how to set up my profile. And it's like, that's holding you back from potentially thousands and thousands of dollars a year because of that one thing. So don't let that one thing hold you back. Like, find out the answer to that, whether it's with me or somebody else, and dip your toe in, try to, get going. You
used to know how to drive a car either. What did you do? You went to driver's ed and you got in a car with a guy who knew how to drive a car, who sat right next to you with a brake and a steering wheel probably on the other side. And he taught you how to drive the damn car. So it's not any different.
Exactly.
You want to get there.
Exactly.
You got to hire someone who knows how to do it, and do what they say. Not to say that you can't improve it or modify to fit your own self, but you got to start somewhere. So
yeah.
All right, my friends, my name is Mitch Stephen. This is the 1000houses.com podcast. I would like to thank you all for stopping by to get you some Kirby Atwell and learn a little bit about how to find or how to identify a great short-term rental. Also, if you go to 1000houses.com/Atwell, you're going to get that free guide. It's a 3-page little guide on how you might start out looking and finding that great short-term rental. And it's always good to have some help. All right, this is Mitch Stephen. I'd like to thank livecom.com for sponsoring this episode. If you haven't had a chance to go by there and see what it can do for you and your marketing, you owe it to yourself. I think texting has a 96.7% open rate. So if you're still using email and you're not using texting to reach your customers and clients, then maybe you're making a mistake, because the open rates are fantastic in text messages. Just think about it yourself. When was the last time you got a text message that you didn't look at? never, right? So, all right, we're out of here. Thanks very much, Kirby. I appreciate you. And maybe I'll see you soon on your podcast.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right,
Really
bye.
appreciate it.